Mr. Rogers, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
It is.
Ken Behrens.
Yeah, Ken Behrens here in Bloomington, Illinois calling.
Glad to meet you.
I have seen you on TV and have, I guess, been amazed at the amount of reaction you've stirred all around the country from the young people.
Well, I'm glad to be able to be in touch with anybody who wants to be honest about themselves and the people with them.
Do you think that's one of the keys to the whole success of your program, honesty?
I have that feeling. I like to get to know people, and with me, it's especially with this new series, Old Friends, New Friends. It's never a question and answer period. It's a matter of sharing who I am with the other person in order to help them feel comfortable enough to share things with me.
You know, I'm sitting here with a kind of a smile on my face just talking to you, and I guess it's the friendliness that comes across. I know that you've been able to communicate with young people very, very well, but this new program, Old Friends and New Friends, is really geared for adults, isn't it?
Yes, it is. They're very serious interviews with people all over the country who seem to be making a difference in people's lives. The program started out there Friday the 11th at 9 o'clock, so I guess tomorrow will be the second program in the series.
All right. Now, where can people catch this? Is it on a network or is it on PBS? Or?
Well, it's on your station, WTIU, which is part of the public television network. And it's on Fridays at 9. And tomorrow, the program will center around Willie Stargell, who is, of course, the captain of the Pittsburgh Pirates and really the father of Pittsburgh. It's great to have been able to become a new friend of his. We had a couple days together, which were just wonderful. We went to them at spring training and also had a day with him at his home. And the kinds of pressures that come from being a superstar, he says he can't quite get that in his head, but, people do call him a superstar now.
Mm-hmm.
And there are an awful lot of things that pull him away from his family.
Now, how would you interview Willie Stargell differently than, say Merv Griffin or Johnny Carson or any of the other folks?
I wouldn't. I'd interview everybody the same way, and most of it has to do with listening. And we have the luxury of being able to tape maybe 6 hours with these people.
And then cut out the best stuff, maybe, huh?
Well, we certainly give what we feel shows an accurate portrait of who these people are. For instance, Dr. Jerry Jampolsky in Tiburon, California, is a psychiatrist who works with families whose children have terminal illnesses. And he has this center for attitudinal healing where kids come together to support each other. And to be able to see these kids who have, they've gone through an awful lot. I mean, a great deal of chemotherapy, for instance, and many of them don't have hair. And they'll get on the telephone with somebody halfway across the country who has not had any chemotherapy at all. And these kids will talk to this other kid and tell them, it's not as bad as you hear. And, when your hair falls out, you can always wear a baseball cap.
Mm-hmm.
There are wonderful networks of care all over this country. And I try to discover different ones of them, and you find them in different ways. There's a 21-year-old teacher in the barrios of Los Angeles who, she's the only teacher who's been able to keep these gang kids in high school. They've all been thrown out of other schools. And what's special about her? What is so special?
Mm-hmm.
We try to find out.
Fred Rogers is our guest. Mr. Rogers, if you can hang on for a second, I want to break for a commercial or two, and we'll be right back.
Sure.
We're talking with Fred Rogers of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and now Old Friends and New Friends, which is a new television show that's not geared for youngsters necessarily, but for adults as well. I guess Fred Rogers is really your name, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
There are some interesting things that come to mind when I think about the success of your show. For one thing, it's not done in New York or California, is it?
No, we tape the neighborhood here in Pittsburgh, except when I go on location, such as last year when I did a series about superheroes. I went to Universal Studios where the Incredible Hulk and things like that are made. But most of the work is done out of here, the public station WQED in Pittsburgh.
Now, the success of this thing is phenomenal, and there are success stories all over the place, I suppose, that people can point to. But you usually figure them coming out of the television cities, which were, say, New York or California. Obviously, Pittsburgh is no slouch either when it comes to programming, and Mr. Rogers' neighborhood has been proof of that. I want to find out a little bit more about Fred Rogers, though. You studied, as I understand it, Romance languages at Dartmouth, didn't you?
Well, that's the way I started. And then I switched to a major in music composition and went to Rollins College, where I got my degree in music. And, of course, I write all the music for the program.
You're also an ordained Presbyterian minister, though, too.
Well, I did that work while I was doing television. I had a daily, hour-long television program in the early days and went on my lunch hour to the seminary. Took me 8 years, but I got through.
Why television? Why did you decide that you wanted to do this? Did you feel that there was a certain area that nobody else had thought of reaching?
Well, I was at home on an Easter vacation from college. I was already accepted at the seminary, and that was the logical thing to do, go right from college to the seminary. And I took a look at this thing called television, and I saw some children's programs which I thought were awful. And so I decided that I would do that. I told my family, I think maybe I'll go into television. They said, "Why, you never even watched the thing." And I said, "Well, I've seen it enough to think that I'd like to do something." So instead of going to the seminary right after college, I went to New York and worked at NBC for programs like The Voice of Firestone and The Hit Parade and the NBC Opera Theater. And yet every day that I had free, I would go around all in the New York area and visit places that served children. So way in the back of my head must have always been the thought that I'd like to do something for children.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I came, after a couple of years, I found out that Pittsburgh was starting a public television station, and I came out here and helped start the first community station in the country.
Do you get a lot of mail from youngsters?
Oh yes, and a lot from their parents.
What kind of things do they write?
Well, the parents usually tell us how they've been able to use our program in their families, and that happens to me when I'm sitting on airplanes too. You know, a man a couple of weeks ago who was sitting right beside me said, "Are you who I think you are?" And I said, "Well, I'm Fred Rogers." And he said, "You visit our home every day." And one day I just tested you out. He said, "You talked about the fear of going down the bathtub drain." And I thought that had come from somewhere in left field. He said, "But that night, my little boy was in the tub, and I pulled the plug out before I took him out, and he started to scream." And I said, "Are you afraid of going down with the water?" And the little boy, through his tears, nodded his head yes. And
here again, it just is taking the time, I guess, to try to understand what goes through youngsters' heads, and by doing that, you're able to really communicate with them. Then.
Well, that's right. Janet, would you please take that other call? Thank you. I'm sorry, this place is just running wild here.
Let me talk to you just a little about your schedule here. We always consider that Fred Rogers has time for everybody, time to listen to the youngsters. What kind of a schedule are you on today?
Well, at 9:30 I talked with people in Dallas. At 10 o'clock I talked with people in New York City. At 11 o'clock I'm talking with you in Bloomington, Illinois. At 1:30 I have a live television program on a commercial station here in Pittsburgh. At 4 o'clock, a person who is coming from a magazine called Better Times Weekly.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you have a schedule like Bob Hope's. I guess I'm trying to get to is are you a family man? Do you have youngsters of your own?
Yes, we we have a boy who is 20 and one who is 19. And the one who is 20 has his own apartment now. He's working at a hospital here in Pittsburgh this summer. The one who is 19 has driven up to Nantucket, where I hope to get in next week.
When they were younger, now I know they don't need their father to give them every move now and tell them which way to go. I don't know how you raised your youngsters, but obviously you had a busy career that you were working on when they were youngsters. Did you have enough time to spend with them?
Well, I think they understood, not in words, but the way I hope everybody understood. Everybody understands about mothers and fathers who work, that there are many different ways of saying I love you. And one of the ways is providing things that the family needs. And while I was very busy, sure, I made a lot of time to be with the kids. For one thing, it served me well. I was able to grow with them. I was able to grow in being a father. That personally served me well, and I think they felt that. But I think they always understood that when I had to go away for a weekend or tape late at night, that I was working not only for myself, but for the family. And there are a lot of mothers and fathers now who are having a really difficult time thinking that it's only time that matters with their kids. But there are many ways of saying I love you. And they don't have to be just words.
In other words, parents can get a feeling of guilt that maybe they really shouldn't have because they're working hard.
I think a lot of people have lots of feelings of guilt about lots of things that are very unwarranted. And I would hope that parents, like children, can get the message from the work that I do that there's a lot that's great about them.
The people that you're talking to now, as youngsters, what are you really trying to do for them? Are you trying to getting them to feel good about themselves? I suppose.
That's right. Because if you can't, then you can't feel good about anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to project. If you feel awful about yourself, you're going to project those awful feelings right onto the face of the person you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I grow, the older I get, the more I realize that every person I meet is so much more than meets my eye or my ear. And if I can just be confident enough to take some time to listen.
That's what it's all about, I guess.
Well, then I certainly will be able to be enriched by the story of that person's life, and hopefully they'll be able to be somebody different from an encounter with me. This last program that we're taping right now for the Old Friends, New Friends series is about interviewing. And, there's a lot of risk in allowing people to know who you are. Honestly know who you are.
Mm-hmm. Fred Rogers is our guest, and we'll try to find out some more probing questions in just a second. We don't have many more minutes left, but we'll be right back. Fred Rogers of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and also a new show called Old Friends and New Friends is our guest this morning. I want to make sure we have the right TV station here because I think we had a little bit of a mix-up in the wrong call letter when we started our conversation, Fred.
Well, before I thought that we were in Indiana, but evidently we were in the neighborhood of make-believe.
That's right.
That's right, dear. Now get it right, for heaven's sakes. It's W-I-L-L Urbana.
Okay, Lady Elaine, thank you. It's W-I-L-L Urbana, and the series begins Saturday, August 9th, and will be on 12 Saturdays in a row at 3 p.m. So I hope it'll mean something to you all.
All right, and this is something for adults and youngsters as well.
Well, it's really for adults, and if their children are interested to see how Mr. Rogers is in relationship to a lot of very fascinating other adults, then maybe they'd like to watch with their parents too.
All right. Fred Rogers, it's been a real pleasure to talk with you, and all the best with the new series.
Thank you, Ken, and I sure wish you well in all that you do.
Thank you very much.